We invite you on a voyage of exploration, a voyage into the world of ancient mythology, a world of gods and heroes who were frequently ungodly and as often unheroic. But in almost every myth, there's a grain of reality. And in this series, we'll try to find the grain that exists in every legend. This voyage will take us to 3 continents and many countries, unearthing clues, piecing together fragments of fact and some marvelous fiction to do with the private lives, sometimes sensational, often deplorable, of our leading characters. Long ago, when the gods on Mount Olympus were busy dividing up the earth between them, Helios the sun god was out on duty. And so he missed out. Somewhat vexed, Helios threatened that the sun wouldn't rise the next morning. And so to console him, Zeus said he would raise a private island for him out of the sea. An island truly befitting such an illustrious, if sensitive, god. The Sun God Island, otherwise known as Rhodes. Perhaps some of the other gods would have been happy with such a gift. Hermes, for instance, the god of big business, since Rhodes lies on the great crossroads leading from Asia Minor, North Africa, and Europe. But it became the home of Helios, an island of pleasure, traditional Greek customs, an island of beauty. The sun god himself added to these with his own life-enhancing rays. But Apollo was the god of light, and he also had his temple on Rhodes, if only perhaps to remind Helios of their rivalry. For a long time, the island was ruled by Turks. Before that, it had belonged to the Knights of the Order of St. John. The Crusaders, driven out of the Holy Land, had taken refuge there. They erected ramparts, which for centuries were to protect Rhodes from attacks from the sea. The knights had come from all over Western Europe. On Rhodes, they set up a remarkable feudal state. A great master was elected, head of the island. His seat, a fortress within a fortress. The Knights of Rhodes lived in barracks, marked with their own coats of arms. This went on till the middle of the 16th century, when, exhausted by the never-ending defense of the island, they made way for the Turks. St. Michael's Pier is the thinnest promontory on the islands, jutting out towards Asia Minor. According to ancient sources, here stood the sixth of the world's seven wonders, the Colossus of Rhodes. It was a statue to the sun god Helios, 30 to 35 meters of copper and iron alloy. The statue's raised arm is said to have been as high as the lighthouse that stands there today. It is claimed that each of its legs stood on one of the piers that form the entrance to the lighthouse. These points are about 60 meters apart, in which case a man astride would have looked like this. The Colossus was a 24-hour lighthouse, but it was so gigantic that the ground it stood on was unable to support it. Not quite 70 years after its erection, it fell victim to an earthquake. Mythology reminds us, however, of a catastrophe brought upon mankind by Helios's own son Phaeton. Phaeton was vain and hot-headed. When his friends laughed at him, saying that he could not possibly be the son of a deity, Phaeton visited his father Helios to obtain proof of his divine parentage. Phaeton implored Helios to grant him any request he might make to prove that he really was his son. And Helios solemnly promised that he would. Phaeton hadn't really decided what kind of request he would make, but then he had an idea. He asked Helios if, for one day, he could drive his father's golden chariot, which brought sunshine to the whole world. The unhappy Helios warned his son that he would lose control of the horses, that his fear of heights would lead him to disaster. But the proud Phaeton ignored his father's warnings. He had complete confidence in himself, which was more than his father had. Soon the horses realized that they were not being steered by the steady hand of Helios. They shied at the sight of Scorpio and Taurus. They panicked at the sight of the centaur's quivering bow, and the chariot plunged towards earth. The tremendous heat from the sun boiled up the waters in the rivers. The heat scorched the fertile plains of Arabia, Nubia, and the Sahara, turning them into deserts. In Africa, it also burnt people's skin and made them black forever. And so Zeus had to step in and take over. The rest of the earth was saved by his prompt action. mythology would explain that the scorched kilometers of Greece's countryside were the result of the irresponsible Phaeton. But the real culprits for this view were human. Phaeton had the good sense, or the good luck, not to destroy roads. The island continued to serve as a meeting place for the gods Apollo, Hermes, and Helios. Apollo looks after people's well-being. Rhodes is famous for its healthy climate. Hermes cooperates with him, ensuring that Rhodes' trade continues to flourish. He also protects the pilgrims and travelers who come here from all over the world. And Helios? The sun cult continues to thrive. It just looks a little different. Every morning, Helios sets off in his chariot to take the sun around the world, and with luck will go on doing so for a very long time. Unless, of course, he has another son who wants to learn to drive.